Excellent. Durham, fantastic. So we have a very good spread here, which is brilliant, brilliant stuff. Okay. Oh, Ibadan, Nigeria. Fantastic. Taraba, amazing. That's from Nigeria as well. That's in the northern part of the country. And that's Professor O'Malley. Thank you very much, sir, for joining and for dialing all the way from Nigeria. It's a pleasure to have you. That's amazing, amazing stuff. Wow. So I guess that says it all. We have a very interesting audience from different parts of the world, if I dare to say, not just the United Kingdom. And it's great to have you on the call, and we look forward to a deeply rewarding conversations. We have Olalekon from Pan Atlantic University in Nigeria. Welcome on board as well. Without further ado, I'll just hand over to Ade, who is going to be walking us through today's program. Ade, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adeyinka, for that very nice introduction. Welcome everybody to today's session. Today's session is a session that promises to be very interesting, very insightful, and I am really glad to have you guys all here join us today. So first of all, I do apologize for Professor Kenneth Ameshi's absence. He was also supposed to be here with us today, but he's quite busy with other activities. This session or this event is organized by myself and Professor Ameshi. And I really want to appreciate Dr. Adeyinka Adewale for hosting this event at the University of Reading. Also, I would like to introduce our speakers very quickly. And first of all, we've got Dr. Bolanle Adebola, who is an associate professor in the law school at the University of Reading. Dr. Adebola has, I'm just reading through her profile, so forgive me here. She has a lot of interest in different subject areas within the law field. She is interested in international corporate insolvency law, comparative corporate rescue systems, and international corporate finance, etc., etc. So for you guys interested in doing law at PhD level, I'm not sure if Dr. Bolanle is recruiting PhDs, but anyways, that's Dr. Bolanle's profile. We've also got Dr. P.K. Senior, who is an associate professor in fintech and information systems at Southampton Business School at the University of Southampton. P.K. Senior does a lot of research in the area of financial technologies, financial inclusion, platform ecosystems, artificial intelligence, blockchain, ICT for development, digital innovation, etc. And we are really glad to have these two brilliant scholars here. Also, as a surprise, which we advertised yesterday, we do have Dr. Sofiat Ola Osebikan with us as well from the University of Glasgow. Dr. Sofiat is a lecturer in algorithms and complexity. And she's got several research interests in different areas within this particular subject area, such as algorithm design, using of graph theory, stable matchings, combinationary optimization, etc., algorithm engineering, etc. And it's a big pleasure to have you here, Sofiat. And finally, we do have Dr. Adeayo Shotayo, who is a research fellow in additive manufacturing skills at Brunel University, London. Dr. Adeayo has several research interests as well in this particular area, which include engineering, materials and design, additive manufacturing, particularly with 3D printing, industry 4.0, timber and composite structures, recycling, sustainability and waste management, etc. And he's also published quite a lot of works in this particular field as well. So I'll give you guys a brief history to how SBA, Society of Black Academics, I said business, Black Academics, how it started. Earlier in the summer, I think it was in maybe March or April this year, I got to speak to Professor Kenneth Ameshi at the University of Edinburgh. And, we were just having a nice conversation, a very long conversation, actually. It was over an hour call. The call was over an hour. And, you know, we were just discussing. I was asking him so many questions. How did you become a professor? What did you do here? Blah, 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 blah. You know, and he shared so many insights with me that day that I felt, you know what, we need to, you know, we need to make this an ongoing activity and an endeavor that people can learn from each other. People can learn from what other people are doing, how they are doing it, what are some of the skills that they have been able to acquire, and how can we progress. And we particularly felt that it was important because when you look at the statistics of Black academics in the UK, we are not a lot, particularly at senior level, at professorial level, or at, you know, management level. So we felt, okay, maybe doing this type of activities will in one way, shape, or form help in developing ourselves as Black academics, which gave birth to the first conference we did earlier in June. And we had over 200, I think, participants on both days. It was a 2-day event. And we decided that we will have an annual conference once a year in the summertime. And in between in between the year, we will have little or smaller workshops like this where, you know, we will be able to go in depth to share more information, more ideas on different topics. So that's why we've decided to go on to talk about issues relating to entering the UK job market as an academic and how to progress as well within the job market. So thank you very much, guys, for joining us today. It's really a big pleasure and a privilege to have you and to be able to, you know, hopefully share some wonderful information. Thank you as well one more time, Dr. Adeyinka Adewale, for agreeing to host this event today. So first of all, I think I'll start off with Dr. Sofiat Ola Oshebikon. Sofiat, you've recently just finished your PhD at the University of Glasgow, and you went on to get a full-time lectureship at Glasgow as well. Could you tell us, how did you go about this? What did you do? What were the, you know, unique activities that you did that enabled you to secure your first full-time lectureship from PhD research? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ade, for the invite and for organizing this. It's a pleasure to be here. And thanks everyone for joining as well from different parts of the world. So this is an interesting story, because if you had asked me January last year if I would be a lecturer at the University of Glasgow, I would tell you, keep dreaming. And now in November 2021, I'm already in the second phase of my lectureship job. So interesting story. How did it actually happen? I think the things I did when I was a PhD student at the University of Glasgow were what positioned me to get my lectureship job. So I should say my lectureship position that I got was quite unique. And I'm not saying it's not possible for you guys, but it wasn't an advertised position. It was more or less a position that was created for me. I didn't even submit a CV. I didn't do an interview. And how did that happen? So I started the PhD quite all right. I came into the UK in 2016. You would be glad to know that I didn't have any master's degree in the UK or undergraduate. I had my first degree from the University of Ibadan in Nigeria, where I studied maths. I finished in 2012, did the service in 2013, and then moved to Ghana in 2014 for my master's in mathematical sciences. I did my master's at AIMS, Ghana. Some of you might know AIMS. It's kind of like a mathematical institute set up in Africa, where their hope is the next Einstein would come from Africa. And then they bring in people from outside Africa to train scientists in Africa. So I did my master's there, and it was not until 2014 I actually got exposed to computing, Python programming as a whole, because I did my undergrad in maths. And back in Nigeria then, the situation with computing is quite different. There are no computers and we have to code on paper, and it wasn't so much fun. So I wasn't finding the right niche to expand on that interest. So did my master's at AIMS, which was where I got into Python programming and computing science as a whole. And I got exposed to graph theory, optimization, algorithms, and those are the kind of things that interest me. And my mentor then, who was also my master's thesis supervisor, was Professor Nancy from the United States in Pacific, Oregon. So she was the one that introduced me to Python and graph theory and the likes. I did my master's at Ames, but then while I was in Ghana, there was a lecturer from Glasgow, Professor Uli, who came to teach modern algebra in Ghana. And I would say one of the unique things about me that has gotten me to where I am at this point in my academic career is talking. I'm a talkative by nature. And by talking and communicating and just I see every opportunity to talk as an informal interview, if I can put it that way. And I think this is one thing I want you to take away. You don't know who has the power to help you. You don't know who knows somebody in a position to give you that job. But it could be that thing you said or the way you presented yourself that kind of planted a seed in their mind that, oh, that's an amazing person. If I see something similar to what they just said, I think I'll refer them. So I think that was how I got my job, must have been, because I was talking to a professor who came from Glasgow to visit Ghana about the things I did during my master's program. I worked on a ProfSCAP algorithm, I worked on matching algorithm, I worked on bipartite graph, and I just kept going on and on, about what I did. And then I touched on matchings, and then he just stopped me and said, wait, I think I have a friend in Glasgow, Professor David Manlove, who is also doing research in matching algorithms. And he's actually collaborating with the NHS. He's designing kidney exchange algorithms that the NHS use to match donors to kidneys for transplant to take place. And that was how my whole story started. And I went on to check out David's website, saw everything he was doing with graph theory and matching algorithms, and I just fell in love, stalked everything. And but then the fact that I knew Professor Uli, who came to visit Ghana, and he knew about my academic performance, he was also one of those that gave me recommendation letters. Again, another thing to take away from here. As you move through stages in your academic career, you would need recommendation letters. If you want to apply for a job, you would need people to give you reference letter. What do you want them to say in the letter? They can't just make things up. It has to be unique about you. The things you want them to write about you, you need to start acting immediately you meet those people. You are pretty much telling them what to write in your letter. This person is brilliant, strong, capable, good communication, oral, written, all of those things count. And they can't make it up. It has to be about you. So all of those things, I didn't even know I was doing them at the time. It made sense now. But those were the things I was doing. And so Uli gave me the recommendation letter, and then the professor from the United States, those were the two recommendation letters I got. And I guess also the fact that there was a kind of like an intermediary. So there is always a saying that it's, you can get in the door, but you also need to do the work to get to stay in. But the fact that there was someone who kind of connected me to the professor in Glasgow went a long way, because it would have been something I wouldn't have thought of doing myself. So Uli connected me to David, who was my PhD supervisor, emailed him, sent my CV. Again, like I said, I started coding in 2014. I didn't know anything about computing science before 2014. And I got my PhD in computing science in 2016. So in less than 2 years of being exposed to Python programming and computing, I started a PhD in computing science. And what I did in between that time was just taking online courses. I have lots of certificates from Coursera. So I knew what I wanted to do. The funny thing about me is I didn't know I was going to do a PhD. I just knew what I enjoyed doing at the time. I loved coding. I loved problem solving. I loved using computers to find solutions to problems. I kind of knew all of that, but I didn't know it was leading to a PhD. And I was doing the things needed to build my skills. So I didn't just say, okay, fine, I know how to write Python code. This is my certificate. I'm a master's student. No, I didn't stop there. I took courses online. I wrote projects. I have a GitHub profile. If you are a computer scientist here, or you're into data science or programming or any of the fields that has to do with computing, it's important to have a GitHub profile, because that's kind of like your showcase, your portfolio for your codes, for the things that you do. So if you are not in computing science and you're in other fields, find something similar that you can use to showcase what you do, like an evidence, you know. So I had evidence that I could do what I said I could do. And then I took all of the necessary courses, and I applied for a funding that I could have never dreamed of even getting, the College of Science and Engineering Scholarship at the University of Glasgow. There were 8 of that scholarship for the whole college. There are 11 schools in the college, and they had just 8. And so it's not the case that one person from each school would get the scholarship. And I was coming from Africa. I've never set foot in the UK. And I was competing with people who have been in the UK for years. So in fact, I just threw everything I had at that application and forgot about it. I didn't even know I was going to get it. But then it worked out. And I remember when I came in to start a PhD in 2016, first thing I had my supervisor was, why did you hire me? You know, because I felt like, I don't know, I don't deserve to be here, and all of those imposter syndrome set in. But then he told me, come on, you have this, you have that. The fact that you have a background in maths was what set you apart for the PhD in computing science. He actually told me that my application was strongest because I knew how to prove theorems. I knew all of the abstraction, and the core of algorithms is maths. My PhD is kind of like the mathematics of computing. It's just buried in computing science. So he was trying to show me the things that I have in my CV and in my application that already set me apart. So that kind of gave me a bit of confidence, and then I kept going. So on the research side, sorry, I'm taking too much time.
No. So I mean, I think you've said quite a lot of it, yeah, you know, of different specifics there, which to put them in summary so far, because I'll still come back to you, Sophia. So far, I mean, you've been able to, I like what you said about speaking, you know, you can talk. And I think so far you've been able to demonstrate that actually here, you know, just speaking. I think that was quite helpful. So, I mean, would you say that those different things that you've done, for example, speaking, presenting, showcasing yourself, you mentioned about, you know, building a profile, building expertise, you took different courses, etc., you know, building evidence as well, you know, building core knowledge. Would you put them in summary to say these were the things that sort of gave you an edge to get a full-time lectureship at the University of Glasgow, straight from your PhD, without a postdoc, without, you know, would you say that?
I would say that's what I was leading. I'll try to be fast. Again, I'm a talkative. I talk too much. I would say those things were kind of like the foundation of what got me the job. They weren't the only thing, because you could expect that there's competition, and everyone that you're competing with has the research experience, have the expertise, are able to showcase the evidence. But what sets me apart was the fact that during my PhD, I started running an initiative to teach Python programming in Africa. It's called PWS Africa. I started that in 2018, and that kind of gave me a visibility that reflected positively on my school. So from doing a PhD, I was already applying for grants to run public engagement activities, and I was awarded the one of the future world changers by the University of Glasgow. I was given a platform to showcase what I was doing in Africa. I had a lot of support, and the university kind of brought that positive light on my school. So I would say what I did was added value in a unique way. And the school thought that was because that was what I was told. I always like to know why I'm being given a position. I asked when I went to the head of school, actually. Again, this is interesting. Ask for what you want and you shall get it. I went to the head of school because he told me, you've been very relevant to the school and we are very appreciative of what you've been doing. And then I asked the head of school, you know, what can you offer me? Is there something that in terms of job opportunity? And then the head of school asked me, what do you want? And then I said, you know, I want a lectureship position. And that was it. And yeah, that was it. I went to the head of school to talk and ask. And then he just told me, go talk to this person. And that was it. I didn't submit a CV. I didn't do any interview. I didn't do anything. And I got a two-year lectureship position. Actually, it wasn't full-time because I hear there is a rule on hiring full-time without interviews. It can't be done. So my job was 2 years, and the 2 years is not over. I've already gotten a 5-year extension. And my hope is before the 5 year even passes, I get a research fellowship And I'm just trying to continue building on that added value. What can I do in such a way the school will be begging me, we don't want you to go? That's how I'm placing myself. So it was those things I did in addition to the research and the expertise. Yeah.
Fantastic, Sophia. I can see Adeyinka clapping for you already, and biggest you. I think you've done fantastic. I mean, there's so many things you said. One thing you said, which relates to the question about how can a person successfully enter the job market in the UK today, relates to the visibility aspect you mentioned. Doing something aside, your normal PhD project that actually makes you visible within your university, within your school, within your department, that can then, set you apart from the crowd. You also mentioned, doing this initiative stuff as well, asking questions, knowing what you want. So I think one important thing to take away from that is actually to know what you want as a researcher, particularly as somebody that wants to enter the UK job market. Very, very fantastic. Thank you very much, Sophia.
Thank you.
Adeayo, I'm coming to you now. Adeayo, your case is quite unique because you, like I said before, you got your PhD at probably one of the youngest PhD holders I know. Having a PhD at 23 is quite impressive. So tell us, Adeayo, Dr. Bolanle mentioned earlier that didn't you have a life? How did you do it? What did you do? How did you, first of all, get a PhD at 23? Run us through that.
Okay. To answer Dr. Bolanle, I did have a life, and I still have. So I still do other stuff. So yeah, it wasn't all book. So thanks a lot for having me on. Yes. How did I get paid? Yeah, 23. So what happened was I actually came. So the simple answer to that was I skipped the master's. So I didn't actually do a master's degree. I came to the UK at the age of 17. So just right after secondary school, and I did a 3-year mechanical engineering degree. As soon as I finished, so I finished with the first class there. So as soon as I finished, I then got a partially funded opportunity to do a PhD for 3 years. So by virtue of that, I was able to, partly due to fund, I needed to finish right on time. So as soon as I completed my thesis within 3 years and sent it in, hence that's how I finished at 23. But so that was that. But afterwards, then that was when the real challenge began, and finding what's next, right? So after my PhD, I did. So there was this confidence I had that I finished with the first class. I have a PhD in engineering. That the job market will just open itself up to me. No, I was so wrong, and I actually did reflect on my experience and wrote an article on it, which is on Times actually. But that aside, I think I applied for over 50 roles, and a lot of both in that's including academia and industry, and there were loads of rejections for different reasons. But across learning from that, there were different lessons I learned from it. I reflected, and hopefully I will share some of the tips I learned along the way to help aspiring academics. So currently, quickly, after my PhD, I ended up getting a job at Liverpool, my alma mater. Before for that was a postdoctoral research project. Then moved down to London for a research fellow position. So currently, I'm a research fellow, and I'm planning to. So with academia, you can decide to go the research fellow route and focus mainly on research, which is what I'm trying to do. And or you could go into a mixture of research and teaching where you become a lecturer or teaching fellow. So there are different aspects, but I'm planning to go through the research fellow route, and I'm putting a case together to get an independent research grant shortly. But yeah, that's one. So some of the things I learned along the way, and I'll draw on some of Sophia's points about networking. I think that's very important, and I will give you an example there. But during my PhD, I think some of the things that can help set you apart, firstly, is trying to get that portfolio. And how do you do that? for example, you present your research. So presenting itself could go from internal departmental conferences to external conferences, which um, I I try to take the opportunity. So I think one of the main takeaways from this session is, first of all, take opportunities. When opportunities present itself, take it, and there are loads to take. I'll come back to that. So present your research, and sometimes the reason it's not just to have that repository, it's not just to have that I've done that. You sometimes get useful feedback that helps. So the feedback doesn't just come in a case of which it can potentially be a question in a job interview, or it could even help prepare you for your viva because you've come across this question before and you're able to answer it better. So you're presenting early, that helps. Secondly, this one might be a bit more challenging, publishing early. So during my PhD, I think during I had sent in, I think 2-3 manuscripts, which even though it was just submitted, even though it had not been fully accepted then, I had put this on my CV, but that brings you, that, will I say, that makes you aware of the process. So similarly, with that, you get peer review, so some feedback, some constructive feedback. Sometimes you get rejections. Actually, a lot of time you get rejections, but that's a story. That's a story for another day. But the thing is, a lot of you can get this feedback and try not to take them personally, improve on them and resubmit if you can, or send it to a different journal. But yeah, that's one. That's two, sorry, rather. During your PhD, there are so many opportunities you can take to stand out. So Dr. Sophia mentioned about standing out, and she mentioned the initiative she set up. So things like that will set you apart. And typically, doing a PhD in the UK, there's different things you can do. So you can work as an associate lecturer, a tutor, lab demonstrator, committee member, project supervise undergraduate project. All of this I did. So I'm just sharing some of my experience. So these are things that you can do that can potentially set you apart. And there's that, there are three elements. So there's the research part where you can showcase by publications, presentations, and there's the teaching part, maybe the lab demonstration or tutor, and there's the admin side of things. So if you are able to demonstrate aspects of these three examples of these three aspects, I think it puts you in a very comfortable position. So the other thing I would say is universities often have internal grants, which I did my PhD at Lancaster University, a top 10 university, by the way. Now I'm distracted. And so there are some internal funding opportunities available, which in my opinion are reasonably easy to get. So all you need to do is just make a case of your research, and sometimes this funding has to be spent. So so they often open it up to PhD researchers and stuff. So I took those opportunities. So I think during my PhD, I was able to go to different countries to present my research, and so that's ticking two boxes because actually three. You're demonstrating you've applied for this small pot of money, which is important. You've increased your research portfolio, and the third one I can't remember, but it was 3 points. But oh, and sorry, shows that you're able to present and write grants. So that's three. And I think some of the other things like to do that I did was to see if you can actually match with every job opportunity, see if you can actually precisely match your experience with those opportunities. So that was the mistake I was making earlier, and I was trying to send, will I say, CVs and cover letter to different things. So a quick, will I say, test you can do is, when you've written your cover letter, can I send this cover letter to multiple job positions? If the answer is yes, then you haven't fit it well enough. So I think be able to, will I say, customize it well enough to address that particular role or opportunity, whichever it may be. So that's that. And places to check for opportunities. I think some of you might already know, like places like jobs.ac.uk, I found mine on jobs.ac.uk. Almost all UK universities advertise on there, so that was something I used, and which subsequently led to both my projects that I've actually three of my projects that I've gotten. So I think I'll just I don't want to talk too much. There's still quite a few things to talk about, but I'll stop there. But the takeaway from that is first of all, you need to start early, and please take opportunities. These opportunities are there, and you need to take them to stand out. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you very much, Adeyinka, for those insights. I mean, taking opportunities stands out. In fact, during the PhD, I've spoken to people that they go, "Oh, I really wish I had taken opportunities during my PhD," because during the PhD, like my PhD supervisor used to tell, and we still talk, about this till now, and she would be like, "I used to tell you during your PhD was the best time to do this, to do that," and I was like, "Really?" Because once you start a full-time job, it gets so crazy. You have different stuff, and so yes, definitely, because during the PhD, you've got a bit of, even though during the PhD you feel like, I don't have time, I'm busy with the PhD, but you have a lot of time to still do, participate in different stuff. I also like your point about presenting your research. It is not worth it to do a PhD for 4 years or 3 years and not even present your work once or twice, because that way people get to see what you're doing. It still relates to the point about visibility. People also get to criticize your work, hopefully give you some constructive criticism that you can use to improve your work. And the third thing is that you also get to build your confidence as well, because by presenting your work regularly, you actually get to acclimatize yourself with what you are presenting, with what you are doing. So very good, very good. Publishing early is one point you mentioned that I picked on, and I was like, oh, come on. Because that's a very difficult task. I struggled to publish early during my PhD. I would send my papers out and it would just be desk rejection of desk rejection. So what I did was I just gave up on it and said, you know what? Let me finish my PhD. After I finish my PhD, I will then start publishing. That can be a double-edged sword in the sense that it can work in your favor or it can work against you. So very good point there in the sense that if you can publish early, so for people doing their PhDs right now, if you can try and as you're working on your PhD, you can try and put some manuscripts together. Of course, they have to be good, particularly targeting good journals. Then send them out. If you can get 1 or 2 publications before you finish your PhD, that really, really puts you in a very good position for a lectureship, particularly at a very good UK university. Thank you very much, Ade, for that insightful comment. I think another, Adeyinka, I'm not sure if you have anything to add at this point before.
Sure. I mean, great insights from Sofiat and Adeyinka. I think the contributions are well received. I'll just maybe add 1 or 2 points to that and take on, I think, the question posed by Melissa in the chat function. For me, I think one of the things that Sofiat's model or Sofiat's approach is one of those ones that builds an impact sort of agenda into your strong case for affiliation, because most universities, like it is, we know, are always looking for ambassadors. We must never forget this. Universities want ambassadors, and anyone who can put a university or an institution in a good light will always be a prized asset of the institution. I say that because I shared very similar sort of trajectory with Sophia. I had a bit of a blend of Adeyinka and Sofia's model, so call me the hybrid of both of them. When I was doing my PhD in Reading, I remember that I was privileged to have won the PhD Researcher of the Year award, which was one of the arguably the most prestigious award for PhD students across university. So this was me versus every other PhD in the university, and emerging as the best PhD sort of researcher. It was jointly won with one other chap who was in meteorology, I believe. Winning that award was one of the things that kind of propelled my profile. In addition to things I was doing outside of the university, in fact, this was the shocking one for me. Like you, Sophia, I was doing a lot of work in the community with young people. I was spending my time every weekend, grooming young people, working with young people on Sundays. And I think someone who had the privilege, or maybe had a cousin who had been impacted by one of the programs I was running. These are young people born and bred in the UK, just looking for male role models. And me bringing them all in and working with them from 2, it became 100 young people every week. That was crazy. They had to give me a little venue somewhere to use in a church setting, where I then began to continue to teach them every week. One of the people who was impacted by that program told her aunt. Our aunt went and told the university. I was given a community award for that. I didn't ask for it. All these things began to build cases for me when the time came. And like taking Adeyinka's model, as a PhD, of course, you have the opportunity to teach. What you do is you teach, you build your teaching impact. I always say to colleagues, please make note of your student evaluation scores. It's a part of building your case for getting a job subsequently. Research is, as Adeyinka said, let me just let you understand that in management, at least, Bolanle will speak for law, PK will speak for finance, and I know Sophia to speak for computer science. Acceptance rate in most reputable journals is between 90 to 99%. Sorry, rejection rate, beg your pardon, is between 90 to 99%, depending on how prestigious the journal is. So the 4-star journals will typically have a rejection rate of between 97 and 99%. That means that only 1% of submissions every year are accepted. So you are not in bad company. I know a late professor who was the #1 leading scholar in international business globally. It's the late Professor Alan Rogman. When Alan Rogman was still with us at Reading before he passed away, even the great Alan Rogman was getting rejections in the Journal of International Business Studies, where his theory was the leading theory globally. Even Alan Rogman was being thrown out of the door. So when he told me that in a meeting, I said, look, Ade, I get thrown out of the door. I'm like, okay, so I'm in good company then if you can be thrown out of the door. So don't feel like a rejection is a death sentence in that sense. Like Ade said, you can always give it another go and keep improving yourself. And that's my summary on Adeyinka's and Sophia's point. But to the question Melissa asked, for the purposes of those on the call, when you want to get a job in the UK, you have an option of one or of 3 types of contracts. You can get a research intensive contract, like Adeyinka is trying to get. You can get a teaching and research contract. The split of that is typically between 65% teaching, 35% research in your time, in your sort of in your framework. And of course, you have the TI contracts, which is what we call the teaching intensive contract. So Melissa is making a valid point. What I find from my observation is that most African academics or African scholars or Black academics tend to be more comfortable with teaching than they are with research. Now, I'm not saying they always are, tend to be more comfortable with teaching. We know our stuff. You put us in front of a group of people, we'll deliver, right? But the challenge is that we can't dictate what the market throws at us. We can't dictate that we will find those teaching intensive contracts out there. And in fact, in terms of career progression, most universities now acknowledge the teaching intensive pathway to moving from lectureship to associate professorship. So what I would typically advise colleagues is that if you got a teaching intensive contract, don't again see it as, oh, they're bugging me with a lot of teaching, I can't become an associate professor, become a full professor. What I would suggest is check your university's promotion criteria for whether there are, a pathway for teaching intensive scholars or teaching intensive colleagues to make it through the ranks. And if you have a TI arrangement, you can then follow the promotion criteria for your specific type of contract. But the research element of it, like you said, Melissa, the question you're asking is, of course, because the research pathway is incredibly tough. And of course, research also is tied with REF, just like teaching is tied with TEF, Teaching Excellence Framework and Research Excellence Framework. But one of them has money attached to it in terms of grants, REF. So the better you have, so that's why universities tend to prefer more of folks who have, publications, because if you have quality publications, you boost the REF score of the school and then attracts more funding to the school. So you are more of a priced asset. Now, for teaching-focused universities, TEF is so huge and important to them, and you find that they tend to be, very open to receiving people who demonstrate excellence in teaching. So I guess the answer to your question is that I believe most of the Black colleagues on this call or Africans who are on this call will be happy to take any of these pathways, provided the opportunity is made available to them. And because we're competent and well able to actually excel across all three. But what you would tend to find is that there are more RI or TNR contracts out there than TI contracts. Mostly the TI contracts are more like contract teaching staff, rather than saying we're bringing you on board to come and, be a teaching intensive sort of, academic.
Yeah.
So that'll be my short response to that, although it's very long.
Thanks, Yinka. I think it's a very good response. I mean, what I would say is, from my experience, my little experience, is that if somebody is doing a PhD at the moment and wants to get a full-time, permanent open-ended contract in the UK university, it is better, or the person will be in a better situation or position if they are in some way, they've been able to build a teaching portfolio. They can evidence that, and also they can also show that something is going on for them research-wise. It is just safer to have a balanced portfolio at that stage, right? Just because you never know, as you said, Yinka, you never know what can happen. You never know. For me, I said it earlier when we started, I did my PhD at Newcastle, very research-intensive environment and all that. But I got my first lectureship in my third year of my PhD. My PhD was for 4 years. My supervisor told me, brother, you will spend 4 years on this PhD, whether you like it or not. So for me, my PhD was straight traditional 4 years PhD. But what I realized was that it was going to be hard for me to get a full-time lectureship in Newcastle University Business School. So that's why when Sophia said she got a lectureship from PhD in Glasgow, I said, wow, that's fantastic. I knew that. So what I did was I started looking for jobs. Now, there are several types of universities in the UK. There are Russell Group, there are Red Brick, what are they called now? Red Brick universities, I think. There's the Platt Glass, like Lancaster's, and then you have like more of the post-1992s. I went for post-1992 universities, which are more teaching intensive in nature. I did that. And as soon as I finished my PhD, because this is why I'm saying that getting a balanced profile at the beginning is very important. As soon as I got just one publication, I started to look out for more of a teaching and research contract in a maybe more research intensive environment, right? So just to buttress on that point, it's important that when we are doing our PhD, take the teaching opportunities, take whatever opportunities come teaching wise, but don't neglect the research, because the research is what propels you. And to be very frank, if you want to even move between institutions, I think the research is very important. People will look at your research profile. What is going on? What are you doing research-wise? If you don't have anything going on research-wise, I'm not saying it's not possible, but it is hard to transition. So I'll leave it at that.
Sorry, Ade, we have Melissa's hand up. If she probably would just quickly take her comment before we move on to the next round. Melissa?
Okay, thank you. I'll be really quick. Thank you so much, and very interesting conversation happening. The reason I asked that question, and thank you, Adeyinka, for your comment on it, there is some recent scholarship, because in the UK, as we have around the world, massive debates about equality and about raising attainment levels of people from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds, and seeing the visibility of their performance and closing the attainment gap. I see here in this room some very high achieving Black scholars, and part of some research that was done in the US said that in order to address this gap to 50 years from now, right, we need our most highest achieving Black scholars to work in some of the most deprived areas and the most deprived schools. Now, the research in this was based on a high school context. And I wonder, there is a lot of debate and a lot of politics about, showcasing some people who achieve to make institutions look good, that they are supporting the equality agenda. But I wonder too, in the long run, it seems like the inequality needs to be worn by those who can achieve now in order to put ourselves in places to set the example for others. And I wonder how that feeds into our own personal agendas and our own personal designs to make a difference. So this is why I raised the question about, is the burden more on us to model that teaching and maintain that balance than our contemporaries or other people in the field. So it was just a comment to throw out there about that extra responsibility that I feel I personally wear, as I'm sure many other people do here too. But I just want to come in on that.
Okay, Yinka, do you want to go for that?
Thanks very much, Melissa, and I think you've raised a very valid point. I think I'll defer to Bolanle to say one or two comments on this, but before then, I just wanted to say to Melissa, say something about Melissa here. Melissa is actually is it the coordinator for the Advanced HE program? Currently, the Advanced HE program is one of the training programs, leading training programs in the UK, aimed at empowering academics from the BAME background, if you permit me to just use BAME as a sort of slogan for the purposes of this context, to take on more leadership roles and to kind of train them into owning their own identity and becoming more prominent figures in the United Kingdom higher education sector. And I've been privileged to go through the program, and it was indeed a fantastic opportunity for me to define my identity and hone my own strategy. But in terms of the nitty-gritty of the nuance of what Melissa just asked, and the reason why I'm deferring to Bolanle is because I know we've had some conversations in the past, and I know she'll have one or two comments on what Melissa has said, and that's why I'm just deferring to her, and also for us to hear Bolanle's voice for the first time. Bolanle, I'm throwing you under the bus officially, and don't delete me from WhatsApp after this.
Don't worry, I don't have to delete you. I can always block you. Hi, everyone. Well, that's a very interesting question. Is it really a question or a call to change perspectives? And well, as I would always say to people, be careful, my politics is not labor. In order for certain things to happen, the question I ask is, okay, yes, that's an additional responsibility, and I'm happy that you added that qualifier of additional. Why is it always that it is the people from minoritized, Adeyinka Q, minoritized ethnicities, rather than BME, that get the burden, to carry on more and more and more things? Bear in mind that after carrying that burden, when success comes through, you're going to find that sharp-elbowed people from places that are from ethnicities that are not minoritized will stand in front of the queue to take the glory. And so for me, that's the perspective from which I will approach this. It's an institutional problem which should be resolved institutionally. I was just trying to remember the name of the woman who just offered to give 155 million pounds, I think, to one of the, I think it's Oxford colleges, for which they're going to change the name of the college to her name. And this is a person from an emerging economy who's made money from an emerging economy and has chosen to send her money that way. Now, the question is, or maybe for me, the thing is, to achieve that which you're asking to be achieved is a great burden, and it requires a lot of resources, or considerable amount of resources. Now look at where resources are going, even from the people from emerging economies when they have it. So for me, instead of asking these poor people whose reward is in heaven, who might not get to heaven anyway, or might get there quicker than they should be, getting there, instead of asking them to take additional burdens, why don't we speak to our own business people too? Where did LSE get funding from? I'm sure many of you would have heard of the links between Libya and the Libyan elite and LSE funding, and a lot of it goes that way. There's so many universities getting money from people from within these same minoritized ethnicities. So it's a question of, one, where government chooses to put their resources, to when additional people, business people, want to put resources, it's a question of where they're parking those resources. I think that asking a redirection of resources should come first before we ask people who are already burdened to take on additional burdens. That's too lopsided to be acceptable to me. But I do agree. I acknowledge the point that you're making, and I concede that it is a good one.
Of course, thank you very much, Dr. Bolanle. Valid point. I mean, initially, when Melissa said that, I was thinking about, you know, we can look at it from different angles. I mean, we could even look at it from, you know, our perspective as academics right now, being encouraged. I've heard of several cases from my, you know, capacity of running this particular society. I've heard of several cases of people even taking on leadership roles within universities and still finding challenges or having challenges in terms of progressing as well. You know, so it leads to your point about institution having to do more as well to solve, you know, this type of issues. We could, I mean, as Black academics, as individuals, I'm not sure what more we can do, you know, than what we already do in terms of developing ourselves, putting ourselves forward for you know, whatever opportunities come our way. But the institution also has to meet us halfway as well, you know, and we have to be able to then use that to propel our careers forward, which leads to the next aspect of our you know, conversation today about progression. And I'll go to PK for a second. PK, tell us, you know, your experience, you know, from getting from lectureship to associate professor at Southampton Business School. How did you go about that? What were the, you know, activities that you had to get involved in? What did you do differently that then set you for that next level as an associate professor at the Russell Group University? Over to you, PK.
Yeah, thanks, Ade, and thanks for having me. Well, I would say it wasn't an easy journey, but I kind of it's all has to do with the foundation you build. So I buy into what Sophia had said, what Adeo said. Like, you need to have a network. One, you need to have mentors. So that's one of the things. So have somebody you look up to, somebody you check in with day in, day out to see how you're making progress. What can you do? So, I mean, when I joined Southampton, and individually, you need to be ambitious as an individual. Otherwise, you get stuck there. There have been promotion rounds that people say, oh, I don't think I should apply because I think I'm not qualified. Said, you have to apply. How do you know you're not qualified? So I would say I like to take on challenges. I'm somebody who would like to solve problems. So that's why I don't work in industry. I work at my own time, my own pace. So when I am somewhere and I see a problem, I try to solve it. So, and putting yourself out there. One, we are already unique. We are Black, so people can easily identify us, but you need to let them identify you in the right way. So you need to, because it's a university, it's not just the school. You don't get a promotion from the school, but the university. So people should know you from the top, at the faculty level, and at the school level. What are things you have to do? So at the school level, you need to take on initiative. So for example, when I joined Southampton, I realized there was a lot of problem with how dissertation was being handled. So we were filling lots of forms, we were doing things, and coming from a technology background, I said, no, look, that's not right. If I'm teaching my student how to use technology to improve processes, and I have to fill a lot of forms, I'm not going to do that next time. So immediately I wrote to my head of department, I need to change that process. I said, okay, it's good. I said, other colleagues were here. I said, why do you still do this? They said, oh, we tried to change it, didn't work. I said, I'm going to change it, implement it. If they don't use it, next time, if they ask me to do the same old way, I'll tell them, no, I'm not doing it. And well, I may say those things. The reason is that I have tried to kind of position myself at a place where if you fire me today, I can get a next job. So you need to build your profile. That's the thing as an individual. And it comes back to Melissa's issue about teaching and research. I will teach research every day, day out. I love to teach, but research is my go-to. That's what showcases who I am. People you don't get best teacher award. And if somebody's employing you, they don't say, oh, how many best teacher award have you received before? No, they look at how many papers have you published? What are the journals? What's interesting about these papers? How much grant do you have? If somebody's employing you, they don't look at like best teacher award. Nobody looks at that. You have to face reality. I love to teach, but no, I don't want teaching to be all my life. So I had to position myself in a way that I become very vocal. If something is not right, I want to change it. So I changed the whole dissertation process. And I wrote to people. People were dragging their feet. I kept reminding them that, look, we need to change this, because if you don't change, if you come back to me next time, I'm not going to do it. And sometimes we have to be bold to make those statements. And they said, okay, go ahead and do it. I found a solution and it worked. And people at the faculty level recognize that, oh, you've done this, you've changed this process. And also I happened to find opportunities. So I got a fellowship to work within the university at other sectors to do enterprise. So at that place, I was going to meetings with vice chancellor, like the vice chancellor or deputy vice chancellor. And I was speaking at those meetings, making things clear, telling them what is wrong, what needs to be done. So people know me from there. So you need that sort of visibility across the university. At the faculty level, I was helping faculty. For example, I'm an appeals reviewer. So at the faculty level, I'm doing things there. So I need to go and deal with appeals and things like that. So you need to already be doing things at that level, associate professor level, before you can get there. If you're doing lecture and say, oh, let me just do what a lecturer does, you're not going to get to that level. You need to be doing things already there, because the one question is, why do you think you should be promoted to associate professor? So you should tell them, yes, I'm already doing things at that level. And I think if you give me the opportunity, I can do more. So these are some of the things you have to do individually. Your research needs to be on point. It's not questionable. People know you can deliver. You need to get grants. And we have a 4 kind of metrics that you have to fill in: your research, your teaching, your leadership and management, and then also enterprise. How can you divide yourself into these 4 boxes if you're only teaching? So these are all some of the things, the dynamics within the school. So you need to position yourself, I would say, have a mentor, plan towards this, work towards it, make sure that you are contributing to the university level, contributing to the faculty level, contributing to the school level, at the department level. Very key, is very important. Make sure that the other things like talking at international conferences, look, this job doesn't pay you. One of the things I enjoy about this job is at least once a year, I travel for free. I go to conference. So I make sure every year I go to one different country for one conference, and the school pays for it. So enjoy that. Look, go to these conferences. You can put this on your CV to say this. Talk to governments, work with other people. They want you to be internationally recognized. Don't only work with your supervisors, work with other people in other countries. It's very important. I have people in Australia. Whilst I'm sleeping, they are working on the paper. Once I wake up, they're going to sleep. Then I work. So find people you work with people internationally, contribute to journals, be editors, be on the editorial board of journals. So these are things, the school wants to know that if I give you associate professor, another school will not be laughing at me that, oh, your people are not strong enough. So they want you to have that sort of profile. So you also have to check, like, what am I doing that positions me internationally? What am I doing with organizations? What sort of consultancies am I doing? So enterprise, it's very key now. Every organization is saying enterprise. Work with organizations, work with industry, look for grants. I mean, it's difficult, but you can try.
Enterprise and impact.
And impact, it's very important. And impact cuts across a number of spectrums. So try and find a way to demonstrate impact. And I would say that by doing this, make sure internally you are recognized, you do things that takes everybody by storm, like, yeah, wow, this guy did that. And then you should be able to overcome the challenges of getting progression in some of these institutions. Thank you.
Fantastic. Very, very insightful points. Yinka, you do have some points to add to that, right? Thank you very much, PK. I think it's very good.
PK has made some really brilliant points. I mean, I can't even fault that. I'm just going to piggyback off some of the great points he's made. I think the key words are at least 2 key words that immediately jump at me: initiative and framing. Now, I'm going to explain what I mean. This is a country and a context that pretty much says to you, don't be humble about your achievements. I know it is against our religious values, it's against our personal values. I get it. I know we want to always be humble and sound like we're holy and all that. That's great. But this is the context that will say to you that when you do something, blow your trumpet. Why should anyone care about what you're doing in secret? That's normal. So that's what I mean by framing, pretty much. So those things that you think you're doing out there, those impact activities, bits and pieces, you need to find a way to frame them. Second thing is taking initiative. What PK said earlier was the starting point of his journey into that associate professorship level. The fact that, I mean, Bolanle will probably speak to this, and I'll probably pass the mic to after I'm done speaking. We find out that in Reading, for instance, I know there are three sort of major blocks of criteria we use: research, teaching, what we call citizenship. Citizenship is a blend of administrative roles and leadership roles. Imagine that you have been bogged with so much teaching that you haven't taken up any major administrative role. When I say admin role, I'm not saying module convenership. That's expected of you anyways. When I say administrative role, like PK is saying, admin roles that are a bit high level with impact that is either at least at the very minimum departmental level wide impact, at the very barest minimum. And what that means is that you're either taking up a school director of teaching and learning, a school director of studies, director of academic tutoring, something high level. Now the question is, you may say, well, but my school, these positions are all taken. I kid you not. And this would lead me to my second point. At the point where, and PK was talking about mentors, well, look for sponsors, not mentors. Mentors do more different things than sponsors. Your sponsors are like your bazookas. They break doors open for you and they give you visibility. Let me give you my own story. When I was just getting into the lectureship position and I was doing my PDR with my line manager ended up becoming my sponsor. I told him point blank, first meeting, excuse me, I want to become an associate professor at the end of this process. However you want to make it happen, I don't know, but that's my desire. And I wasn't mincing words about it. And he said to me, if that's what you want, we'll make it happen. And at the point where we looked at the promotion criteria, which is another thing I always advise colleagues to do. You are in a school setting, please download the promotion criteria that is released every year. Assess yourself on it and tick the boxes to see where you're deficient, because that's where you need to, like my mentor always said to me, build your greatest defense around your area of greatest weakness. That's the classic strategy for promotion. You've got to find a way to build your greatest defense around your areas of greatest weakness where you're pretty much lacking or deficient at this point. And I spoke to my sponsor, and what he did for me was incredible. We discovered that, number one, I was lacking in the research area, which meant that I not that I was lacking in a bad way, but I had to do more in the research space. Granted, everyone always needs to do more in the research space. But the second bit of it was the citizenship. And he said to me, you don't have a fundamental administrative role that gives you that clout of I'm ready for more leadership. I'm ready for a higher level. You know what he did for me? He went to the head of he'd been the head of department, went to the head of school and said, I'm creating one for him. There was none existing, and he created a deputy role. Now, you can see that there is a fine line between what I said and what Sophia said at the beginning and what PK is saying as well. Even though many of us look at context and we immediately judge that maybe opportunities are closed, when you take initiative and you speak to the right people, doors will open to you. Oftentimes, we must understand that in as much as the system may be biased, or we may have, this mindset that, the whole thing is trying to work against us, let's not forget that we are all working in organizations that really want to see the organizations thrive or do well. So if you add value to making an organization or a system work better, they will create that opportunity for you. In my case, that position was created for me. And I got into that administrative position that I needed. And I got into it in good enough time to demonstrate impact on the role, because you can't do hit and miss with these roles. You must have been on it for at least 1 to 2 years to demonstrate the traction of specific types of impact. So when I was filling out my promotion case, when they asked me, citizenship criteria 1, what have you done? And I said, I'm the deputy director of studies. I began to showcase what I had done in 2 years or 2.5 years of work that was demonstrating impact. Things that they didn't ask me to do that I picked up on during the pandemic. we had problems with evaluating student, module scores. I created an e-form, simple things that you might think are no-brainers. And I'm not even a computer genius like Sophia or PK, but translating forms into electronic versions and coordinating the analysis of these forms and running working groups to discuss the feedback on these forms became a huge impact point that went into the promotion case, and so on and so forth. So I guess what I'm just adding to what PK said is take initiative. Don't always say they don't exist for me. Create opportunities for yourself where you see them. Frame your impact. Find ways to tell your own stories and speak to people. In fact, it was when I learned that whenever I had a small win outside of the university, I'll bring it into the university and write certain people and say, I've just been appointed XYZ in this institution. You'll be like, oh, wow. Yeah, so just for you guys to know that the dude you have here is doing okay. I wasn't like that 3-4 years ago. I thought I was being proud and wasn't, was being too harsh and all of that. But then I realized that the system actually demands that you frame your own impact and tell your own story, because no one will tell it for you.
Yeah, it's a very fantastic point, Yinka, because this country or this system is a system where it's about people knowing that you exist, people knowing that you are doing something unique. At the end of the day, what's the point if you are all great in your own space, but nobody knows about it? Then how can then they be able to use that to give you what you want? So it's very important. Dr. Bolanle, what do you have to say, about this particular issue about promotion? Because many of us, we would love to hear from you. You are an associate professor at the university already. So come on, give us some tips.
I'm not sure what exactly I'm supposed to add to this conversation, because I think that PK and Adeyinka have done it all. I think I tried to jot a few notes here so that I can get my head in the right space. I think that it's about almost the same type of effort that I used to get a job, that I used to get promoted. I think that has been said already. It's the same set of skills. So the very first thing I would say is educate yourself. I think that before we started the conversation, we had this talk where I always assume that everybody knows what's going on and how to handle themselves. And I'm usually surprised to hear that people don't understand how to handle themselves. I listen a lot. I can sit down and listen to the same story over and over and over and over and over from the same set of people, just hearing the stories about how they've made things happen. And from that, I pick a few key values that I apply to my life. And that's how I tend to approach these things. So I would say there are two things. One is you work backwards, and two is you have the people. So work backwards starts with, hey, you want to be associate professor. Have you picked up the associate professor, the promotion form in your institution? Sit down and grade yourself. I'm very good at grading myself. I think at some point, my dad would say, Bolanle grades herself. Whatever she tells you she got is what it is. No questions asked. Grade yourself. You should be able to judge yourself. I know there are people who would kill themselves, who would go, I'm useless, I'm this, I'm that. Even if I grade myself 10%, it's not to grade myself 10% and then say that's the end of it. It's to grade myself 10% and then go, okay, if we're 10%, how are we getting to whatever percentage is necessary? So you work backwards, you pick those forms out and you grade yourself. Now, PK has talked about problem solving. What you have is a problem, okay? So you want to move from point A to point B. You're gonna have to ask yourself, well, what do I need to get from point A to point B? One would be you need some skills, you need some resources. The key part of your resources would be people, and two would be your own initiatives. Many of the things that I've done, as Adeyinka has said, are things that I created by myself. So for example, at the University of Reading, I created the staff BME network. That took a lot of my life, but I had to do it because we were working in an institution that needed to be a lot more aware about race and the impact of what's going on, of the decisions that the university was taking on its minoritized ethnicities. And so someone had to speak up. I'm not the activist type. I would tell you, I'm not a Malcolm X, I'm a Martin Luther King, if any. I'm an organizer. So I organize around problems, I solve problems. You create the initiatives. And another role that I've taken has been D&I lead. And within the D&I lead space, so people, I don't like dogma, I don't like ideology either. And so people started with this, Melissa talked about the attainment gap, which we call the awarding gap, these days. And people, there was the Universities UK thing that came out, report that came out. And one of the questions I asked myself was, is it true that within my own department, for example, we had an awarding gap? And so I set out to understand, to know for myself, so that I would have the basis on which to make any demonstrations or to ask for anything that needed to be done, which meant that I then had to take that chore on by myself. And of course, that led to a lot of other things. So you create these spaces within which you operate. Now, by creating those spaces, someone just calls you and says, well, come and solve this problem, since you know that, this is what needs to be done at any level. Now, remember that I said I listen to just about anybody. I can sit down quietly and listen to children. That way, people go, oh, Bolanle is very strict with children. Why do they love her? But it's the same way listening to adults means that I can walk into a space where you have, high-ranking people, and I'm not cowed by it. I'm not bowed by it. I'm not afraid to stay there and to speak. So I walk in there, if it's a vice chancellor, if it's a deputy vice chancellor, even if you brought, I don't know, perhaps the president of the United States, who's supposed to be, in principle, the most powerful man in the world, or maybe that's now the president of China, I don't know which one, but whoever it is that you brought before me, I can sit down or I can stand there, whatever is necessary, and I can have a conversation with them. And these are skills that I practice by, one, speaking to my parents, speaking to their friends, speaking to people that are older than me, speaking to just about anybody. These are skills that you pick up along the way. So there's that. You need to create that space within which you then operate. Now, from time to time, you're going to have to stick your neck out and you're going to have to ask for things. And that's one of the things I've done in my university. I had to ask, make certain demands politely. I would imagine is the way I do. You're usually polite until they actually have to do something, and then you become a very difficult person. And so, but anyway, you have to make demands. And so I, you're the one in charge of XYZ. Can you tell me why X is not working the way that it's supposed to? And sometimes they go, well, if you know so much, why don't you come fix it? That's fine. I'll fix it. But you don't complain when I start fixing. So you watch out for the problems that you engage. Anything you don't like is a problem. And so it's an invitation to you to fix it. Never mind if there's nobody like you. Never mind if it's not been done before. Never mind if you're the only person. Never mind anything. You just go in there and fix. Educate yourself. Understand the space that you're working in. It's absolutely important. Now, it's not for you to hear. So when I heard the statistics for promotion for people from minoritized ethnicities in my uni, I said, well, that's cool. It would have been bad if you said there was none. But if you say it's this poor, that means there's a chance that I will make it within, that group. That's all I fixate on. It was less than 1 in 5. Less than 1 in 5 was good enough for me. It was just, I was going to have to be within that less than 1 in 5. That was fine. That's all I needed to go. Even if you had said it was 0, I would tell myself, Bolanle, you'll be the one. Don't worry. It's okay. It is a problem, and it's my responsibility to solve the problem. Now, I've said you need skills to do that. It's the same as getting a job, as it is with promotion. You know the things that are valued. You've looked at that form. You've graded yourself. You know the things that are lacking. Hit those targets. It doesn't matter. In my fields, they say you don't get grants. I got grants. I've got British Council grants, Arts and Humanities Research Council grants. It doesn't matter. I put myself in there. Now, it means that I am extremely meticulous in making those applications. It means that I sit down and I can read scores and scores and scores of grants, but I do it until the point where I understand what they've all done wrong. And I can fix it. And so I fix it. And I put in those applications and I get in. So it's, you solve the problems that you have. And then you have the people part. I know that before we started this, we talked about, how do we deal with people? So one, the people starts with you, self-critical. The next set of people you need would be the mentors. People have talked about the mentors. Now, there are two types of mentors. They're the warm and fuzzy ones, the ones that hug you and tell you it's going to be okay. Usually, they can't help your life. I have them there for when I need something like that. You need the ones that are critical enough, the ones that sit you down and say, look, Bolanle, here's the issue. This is a very good application you made, but it's not what the paper is written on. Hey, here, I've written a proposal, 7 pages. The person canceled 6.5 and said, let's start with this paragraph. I think it works. So you put this paragraph in front and then you rewrite the whole thing, Some people get angry. I don't. I'm like, okay, let's go work on that. My promotion application, the person I gave it to read, at the point I just started to yell. I was just yelling at him because I was mad, because I was done. And then I remembered this person is in Cambridge on a conference. It's 11 o'clock at night. What's his business reading my promotion application? He's doing me a favor. And so I called back and I said, I'm really sorry, but man, that was really painful that, I pulled back my ego and okay, let's cancel it all. Let's start again. But he was right and it went through. So you need those people that can have those hard conversations with you, that can tell you, I'll put it very bluntly, very, very bluntly, this is shit, okay? And you need to start again. You need those kinds of people. And then you need the sponsor. So as with many people, you need to get from point A to point B, hey, hi, sit, hi, here's what I need. Here's what your role is. I'm not asking you to teach me how to do X. I'm saying, are you willing to bring your social and political capital to get me from point A to point B? Because I have what it takes. Now, it's a blunt conversation. Go for advanced HE. Melissa leads that. She'll show you how it's done. They will tell you how it's done. You have to, that's part of what we said about educating yourself. I read tons of books on leadership. I read tons of books on professional and self-management. And you have to work within the skills that you have and within what makes you comfortable. I'm not really good at screaming, this is what I do, this is what I do, but I have my own way of targeting things and hitting them. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to learn the other things, because now I'm going to a place that is higher and what got me here won't take me there. So I have to expand on those things. But there's always politics, and you have to know what side of that game you're going to be on. There are some people that are drip, 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 drip. No to everything, and they don't have a place for compromise. They will try to recruit. They always have this, they're usually nice way of recruiting. Beware. I think I was in my institution for the first 3 years. No one knew I existed. I just simply shut my door. She's not friendly. That's fine. I'm not. When I need to stick my head out, I stick my head out. But also when I need to retract, I do. Be careful with your ego and always be aware that you're dealing with other people's egos. And perhaps as a lawyer, I am well aware of my rights. And so I know where to say, look, you're going past my rights, as and to be able to speak up. But you need to deal with people. I'm not a people person. I'm learning. I sit there and I'm looking at books that I have there, books on mastery, books on, what's the one? Daniel Goleman, the Goleman book on, what's it called again?
Emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence, all those kinds of things. These are skills that I need to develop in order to do the things that I need to do. You then take those skills and apply them in different areas, whether it's research, whether it's teaching, whether it's impact, where it's what. know when to stand up. Now, when people invite me for things, if you don't write to me, look, in the most flattering way possible, to invite me, and then you thank me, particularly when you're not going to pay me, you must thank me. And you must thank me, Adeyinka, I'm not going to take a dear all from you. You must thank me specifically and talk about how great I was and how great what I did was, because those are the things that you pull to the places where you're going, where you're going to make a case for yourself to show the esteem that you bring to the table. These are some of the things that you need to do to create this profile that is necessary to get you to the point where you're going.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Dr. Bolanle. Man, I'm like, whew, okay. Fantastic stuff. I mean, I want to ask you guys, now this is for you, Bolanle and PK. As academics, we're judged on 4 things: your research, your teaching, your admin or leadership, and also your, these days we say, impact and enterprise. Can you really do 4 of those things at the same time? Can you? That's the first question. If you can, how? Yeah, that's 2A. If you can't, how can you? Sort of, so because this is increasingly becoming important to get promotion in university. Yinka, you're laughing, but it's the truth. So any of you, and Yinka, you could also step in. At least you're an associate professor now, so you could jump into this particular discourse.
PK go first. Let me let PK go.
Well, I mean, when I go to meetings with like people at the top, that's what I tell them. Look, we can't do all this. I want to do research. I love teaching, but I still want to do research. I tell them, look, I cannot be an expert in all of this. So that's why you need to create tracks. So somebody is good at enterprise, so they are hired for enterprise and they are doing teaching, maybe only 10% or research 10%. Then I can work with those people to make sure, because I'm on a balanced contract. So I keep telling them, and they said, okay, they've started. So in our university, there are people recruited just for enterprise to bring in the money, to bring in the businesses. But as I will say, you can do all, but not to the best of your ability. So when I wrote my promotion application, I knew there were a little bit of deficiencies in other places. I would not say that every place is strong, but sometimes you need to demonstrate that in one area that's really strong, that it complements the other. You can do all of them. So do one that can be used in both sense. So for example, when I took on that project to transform dissertation marking within the school, it counts for teaching the same way it counts for leadership and management within the school as well. So do things that can count for both ends. Also, when I want research grants, one, I take the research part of it, but at the same time, it allows me to work with companies to translate the outcomes of this research. So then it ticks the enterprise box. So try and do one thing, but then it addresses 2 things. That's what I would say. So you can actually do all those 4. You may be a master in 1 or 2, but then you can actually tick all those 4 boxes.
Right.
Just do one thing that allows you to tick the other boxes. That's what I would say.
Fantastic. I think that's a very good response. Yinka, you wanted to say something? Thank you very much, PK.
I mean, PK, just adding to PK's point, partnerships and collaboration. You can't beat the place for partnerships and collaboration. Like PK rightly said, first of all, evaluate yourself. Where are your strengths? Know where your strengths lie. And this is where you need to be very strategic. For instance, if you're comfortable with teaching and you've got the teaching capabilities that will make you score high on all those teaching points that your promotion criteria will use, you don't need to bother about it much. Just keep doing just keep coasting, as I would call it. But if you notice that the research element is deficient, for example, like PK said, if you're on a teaching and research contract, the next thing you should be looking for is to look for alliances and people you need to tag along with who can up you in that game. In my instance, it took my sponsor, a brutally honest conversation with my sponsor. So I remember sitting down with my sponsor and I said, look, man, I'm 1 year away from this supposed deadline I set for myself to apply for my promotion. And I realized I'm still a bit deficient in the research area. Mark you, when I had that conversation with him, I just published a paper in the Journal of Business Ethics, which is like if an FT 50 ranked journal, so one of the 50 journals Financial Times uses. So apart from the business school point of view, it being a 3-star journal, you get an extra point for it being one of the choice 50 pieces that FT uses. So it's like a 4-star publication. And it was sole authored, which was another plus. So I had just come off the back of that significant achievement, but that wasn't going to be enough to carry me across the line. It only showed there was good potential in me to be a good researcher, nothing more. And that was the way I saw it. So I wasn't carried away by, I just published something great. It was more or less to me like, yeah, you have good potential, dude, you need to do more. But I can't do more on my own because it took me 18 months to get that one paper published. And if I'm going to get promotion next year or apply for promotion next year, I need to find a way to get into some sort of collaboration. And I spoke with him, and the next thing he told me was, tell me your research pipeline. I told him my research pipeline, and he said, you need to speak to X person. Link me up by email. I had a conversation with the person, and the person said, let's have a chat. And before I knew it, in 6 months, I had 3 3-star publications through partnerships and collaboration. And that's, you know the good old saying, one head can go only this far. 2, 3 good heads will take you even faster. What I realized was that it was like pulling together our resources to achieve greater things quicker. And so I was able to build up on that, and that was what helped me. So I'll say to you, please form partnerships where you lack, where you find where you're having deficiencies. One third point before I hand over back to you, Ade, that I discovered from the funding side of things was that whenever I applied, many of us do this thing. I can see a comment there by Ola saying it's about framing. Did you know that if you got sponsored to attend the conference and it was paid for by the society organizing the conference, it is funding? You have to frame it as funding because it wasn't free. Someone paid for you. So when they ask you research grants, you can put it there. It's a type of grant. Don't try to call it a travel grant. Don't belittle yourself. It's a grant. A grant is a grant. Whether it is used for the transport fare to get to the venue or whether it is to pay you to come attend it, a grant is a grant as long as you were awarded a specific sum of money to be a part of something. Frame it as a grant. It could then be that in your application, you categorize it as small grants, because for some of those grants, it's £1,000 and £2,000. But one thing my sponsor told me, which never left me, said to me, he said, Adeyinka, people often belittle those small grants, but people don't realize that in university settings, you stand a better chance of being empathized with if you show a track record of going from 500, 1,000, 1,005 type of grants to 10,000, 15,000, and then to 250K, 2 million grants. You know, the truth is everybody knows that those 2.5 million pound grants and those 100,000 pound grants are so hard to find, particularly in the COVID era. So that means that the high caliber grants are now meant for the superstars. When I say the superstars, I mean the big boys, the very heavy professors who are well known. If you happen to find yourself in the company of these kind of guys, maybe by means of your PhD affiliation as a supervisor with them, go for it. You will get it. But beyond that, there are smaller grants. Bolanle mentioned British Council grants. Boy, British Council grants out there are tons, like tons of British Council grants. What that means is that even if your university wasn't taking initiative for some of those things, while some of us are looking for pure research grants, ESRC, AHRC, and all those kind of grants, those British Council grants provide you 45,000, 50,000, 100,000. All you just need to do is pull a team together and execute and get the job done. And it will just be what you need. So where I'm saying is that, like Peter says, he can't help but laugh out loud, realizing how I need to pedestalize transport fare. Yes, so, you know, £300 T fare, put it there, it's a grant. You won't say travel grant, it's a grant. So by and large, it's about, number one, knowing your strengths and coasting on your strengths. Number two, where you're deficient, build your greatest strategy of defense around those areas of deficiencies, and that will mean collaborations and partnerships. Don't be shy to reach, and that's why I always say there's a place for a sponsor. You see, a sponsor is your gatekeeper. They understand the horizon. They do what I call horizon scanning better than you can, because typically they are such a level where they know people and the inroads better than you. So when you say you need something, they know who they can attach you to. If they're truly your sponsors, they will network you immediately to who you need. In my case, that was what happened. You know what this man did? He didn't just network me with just anybody. He networked me with a prolific writer who was a Forbes columnist. So the first thing this guy did for me was to say, Adeyinka, I know you have something in your pipeline. Write something for me for Forbes. He wrote it. He put it up on Forbes. Before I knew it, I had my first Forbes publication. Before I knew it, I had 2 SMR publications. He was prolific. He had the pipeline. So the guy was just saying to me, bring in your assets. Let's combine assets and let's get things going. And that was it. So from there, all I knew was that the little things that were lying in my computer that I thought were useless became gold dust to someone else's project. So when his own platform, married with my own knowledge, came together, it became a huge asset for both of us in the long run. So that's what I'll say.
Wow. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Dr. Bolanle, I think you wanted to say something.
Oh yeah, well, I will just make it short because the others have said the most things. Again, for me, it's always about educating yourself and awareness. Can you do it all? Yes. Well, to be fair, it's only the people that can do it all that will get ahead. So if you think you can't do it all, then don't. Stay where you are. Be happy. If you want to move past where you are, then you've got to figure out how to do it all. And I'll say a few things. Don't do grunt work. I know how to say no. No, I'm not doing it, period. And even if it means we're going to have to, I don't care where you drag me to. Bottom line is I'm not doing it. I'm not saying reject every little thing. So no matter how small. So it's 2 things. It's don't do grunt work or hit the achievements. Now, if you put me in a space, no matter how silly, if you said to me, the job is for you to stare at the wall, I will devise a way of making stare at the wall into this artistic thing, that and that is that. And then it becomes, this skill that other people desire. I think the one thing I enjoy is that people are always trying to steal my projects. They're always trying to steal my projects, but these projects were right there in front of them and they didn't think that it should be done. So it's, you make what you do, you bring your thought processes into it, be creative with it. Whatever you do must have an achievement linked to it. So how can I fix? I problematize everything. What's going on here? What can I fix? My students are coming to meet me and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them have complained, the assessment. And I said, okay, fine. We'll run an assessment literacy workshop. I bring the full works of assessment from academics to administrative staff, to the librarian, to this, to that, to those. You train them on this, you train them on that. I create a rubric that then gets posted at the university level. I teach the students how to grade themselves. I'm a constructive, person. I believe constructive learners, the students have to engage, they have to do the work. So, that's what I did as exams officer. It was usually a nothing job. You just came there and you sat over exams meetings. I made it into something that I could then link an achievement to. So that's it. Whatever job you give me, I would read, I would educate myself, I would apply myself to it and create something out of it. So whatever it is you do, it must be with an end goal. Don't do grunt work. Now, if you're in a position where you have to do grunt work, or if you're in a position where you are bogged down by so many things, then you're doing something wrong. It's time to negotiate. So I know you're recording this, so be careful. I'm not as liberal as other people are, because I'm in quite sensitive position. Listen, I do the same work as several other of my colleagues, right? A particular work that I do, and I get the most time for it, simply because I negotiated. This is what I want. If you don't give it to me, I won't do the job. So this is what I want. I want it written down, because people lie.
Yeah.
People move. People have amnesia. And so when, there were we were dealing with workload, and they were like, no, that's not flexible. Here is the agreement that we had. This is what was agreed. Now, anyone who is going to go against this, you have to do it. If you're going to do it unilaterally, then I have the right, I reserve the right to go somewhere above you to complain, or somewhere, wherever it is, HR, whatever, to complain.
And as a lawyer, you can do that.
Well, it's the same price. You just have to be ready to, take it on. But you negotiate for the time so that you don't apply yourself to things that don't return rewards. For the other things, know where to hit the minimum. You have to hit that minimum, keep it there. But with everything, no matter how silly it is, you must have something that you can say, this is the achievement for this one. And then you can tag it on there. Your applications will never be balanced. You will never be like, so I think for research, for me, I didn't hit I think it was the exact number, but the quality of the work I was doing and the additional types of things that I was doing, getting grants that my colleagues will not get. I run a research network. I work usually with international organizations. I get invited to do impact-related things. These were things that my colleagues were not doing, but things that I was doing because I'm a very applied person. I like fixing problems, like I said, so it's whatever the problem is, national and international, my goal is to fix a problem. So it's that you have to know you hit the minimum. So they couldn't say no, but it's also because while other people might put in a little time getting, tiny star papers, at the time of ref, they had to call me to say, well, we rated your papers at 3-star, but now I think we have to re-rate your papers at 4-star. And I was like, why did you re-rate my papers when it was time to promote me? Some were, others weren't, so the 3 stars went up. So it's always a question. I'm a quality over quantity kind of person. That's always been my kind of person. But hit the minimum at least. Dial up a notch over that. And then the places where you can fly, you fly. That's what is necessary. But you must speak. Nobody will speak for you. You must speak.
Wow. Fantastic. Thank you so much. You're talking about minimum, and this is a question that I'm pretty sure some of the established or practicing lecturers here will want to know. What is the minimum? PK, maybe you could answer this, or maybe Dr. Bolanle, or even Adeyinka, you could go for it.
This time around, I will start so that I don't always have to come in third.
Okay.
The minimum, like I said.
For research, by the way, for research.
No. So with your promotion application, for example, in my uni, there would be the form, then there is the contextual statement, it's the contextual statement. It is contextual to each school or each department. That would say, in this department, in my department, you need 12. And I was like, well, I'm gonna do 10. So I'm not waiting, because the time that it took me to read all those research grants that your people are not getting, that took me like a year of everyday reading to even get to grips with what was going on in that space. So I'm going to do so number of them. And this is what I hit. So the minimum for me was something that I know that whoever is backing me will not be embarrassed about. That you would find, these things are not straightforward. You would find that you're in the same box with people that might do 3, and they might just have someone who is, much stronger speaking up for them. But you do a level that is considered reasonable, and that by the time they look across, so you're graded 1 of 6, and you must not fall below 4. So if you ask these people that are quite honest with you, grade this. If they grade you below 4, don't go. If it's 4 or 5, then yes, you're in there. 6 would be, say they asked for 12, you give 20. No one asked you for the extra, still the same. So it's that what the minimum is, and for that you need those honest, people talk about minoritized and nobody supports them. My closest helpers, all my helpers have been white male. I don't understand the women, and the Black people are not there. So I go to the people who can help. They're the people who speak the language. Make sure it's somebody who sits at the table, not someone who idealizes these things, someone who actually sits there and sees these things and so can grade it. That's For me, that's what it is. What do you need to teach 10 courses for? I spoke to someone recently who's teaching on very many courses. I'm like, no, heaven will fall. I won't. You know what it is to show that you're teaching. If you're teaching intensive, teach core modules. If you're research, then you don't want to teach on core modules. When they put me on modules that had a combined number of God knows how many students, I screamed to the high heavens, not going to happen. So you know what you would have a sense of what you need. And then the extra is, the cherry on top, and you don't have to give it.
Okay, very good, very good. But there are some universities where there are some lecturers that don't have that, courage, or even you might be in an environment. For example, I give you an example of myself. I was in a teaching intensive university. They give you the teaching, you teach it. If you don't teach it, why did you come? Do you understand? So how do you then manage that? How do you then,
I understand what you're saying. It's not, even when I talk to you, it's not easy. I think I'll tell you that as I sit here, it's not easy. But sometimes, the showdown is called for you. Do the showdown. I would not shout. I don't exchange words with anybody. You will never find me doing that. If I'm going to make an argument for myself, I make the argument based on evidence. So it's a way of, you find the way that you link, where you must create. I think that my goal for next year is people management. You must create the tracks. I would create 3 different options for the same thing, nowhere to go. And if there is no going forward, then it's time to pack up your bags. So you must know when to hold, know when to fold, know when to walk away. Right.
Okay. PK, over to you before I come to Sophia and Adeayo. PK, what's the minimum for research? For example, I know there are some people who want to know, how many 3 stars do I need at a business school? Or how many 4 stars do I need? And Dr. Bolanle mentioned something about quality. I also like quality. In fact, as a researcher, I would prefer to just publish one paper in 2 years, but that paper is a good paper, right? I personally, I don't believe in having so many publications, personally, and I know people who have different views about this. So for somebody like me who prefers, I work on this publication, this quality piece of work for 1 year, it gets published in a top journal. The bare minimum can affect somebody like me for promotion, because what if at the end of in 5 years, I don't really have so many? So how do you respond to that?
Yeah, okay.
PK, sorry, can I interrupt you there? Ade, you are misrepresenting me.
No.
When I said bare minimum, it's not the bare minimum. It is the bare based on what people at the level you want to go must produce. And that is contextual to the department that you're in. So if you're going to work slow, then that's for you. It is bare at the level that is needed, not at whatever you think personally is the barest you can get away with.
Right. Okay. PK.
Yes. I will say in my university, for example, there's no threshold. So there's no number. So people will not say there's no give us 4 stars and then no, there's nothing like that. It's very ambiguous. But what I will say is that as a researcher, universities in general, what they do is that they pitch themselves against each other. So you need to see maybe somebody at the same level in another university, maybe Russell Group. How many papers do they have? What's the quality of the papers? So personally, I also believe in quality, and we have journals that take 4 years to publish 1 paper. So just imagine if you want to publish in only those journals. So I would say, and also you need to create a reputation for yourself that the university will not like to lose you in that sense. And also to other academics, the other way to get a promotion is to get an offer from another matching university, because sometimes they know you qualified, you have the minimum in code. You may apply, but somebody will just say, oh, maybe like the other staff, and say, no, you're not getting it. I know people who have been at the same university for so long, and they have to move to get a promotion. So to colleagues, look, you know yourself, like what Bolanle said. So know yourself, know your value. When you get there, you know that, yeah, at this level, I think I deserve to be an associate professor. Look at your profile, look at the quality of work you've done, look at the things you've done that other people already at that level have not even achieved those things. And know that, look, if I apply, it's either I'm getting it or I'm moving out. It's the same thing. And if they know that, look, we don't want to lose you, they will make sure that you get it. So don't just rely on internal promotion. If you know you really qualify, please, this is a job. Don't be attached to it. Don't be emotionally attached to it. Look, when I get head of schools, leaving the university, then I say, look, what? Then I cannot stay here the whole of my life. No, not at all. So go into that job with a sense that anybody at all can leave. Like, just to digress a little bit, don't take verbal agreements. Let things be written down, because your head of school can resign and go to another school. So please make sure things are written down, like what Bolanle said. There's no minimum. Make sure that you just make sure that you do your best. Put in a profile that if you say you're associate professor, you're proud of it. You know that you've achieved something that it's comparable even across other universities, and develop yourself to a point that if they fire you today, you can get a job. It's not like you are indispensable. And it's your research, I'm telling you. At least that's what I believe in. It's your research, your grants. Yeah. Those are the things people see. You can be the best teacher, but I won't hire you because you're the best teacher. Look, these top universities, they are top, but it's not, they don't teach anything. They don't care about the student that much. I'm telling, I have to be honest with you. We teach, we do stuff, but it's the research. If you're applying for a job, they look at what sort of research do you have? Where have you published? So I would say, look across board, look at what you've done yourself. Do you think you deserve it? I know there's imposter syndrome. Even sometimes I feel that, look, I think I don't deserve this. But look across. It doesn't mean you should be jealous, please. Don't be jealous. When people achieve things, be happy for them. Yeah. Aspire to be like them. Don't be jealous that, oh, why is he this and I'm not this? No, please, don't do that. Just aspire, learn from them, be motivated to be like those people. The achievements should motivate you. Yeah. So look across board, see what others are doing, even look internally. Who is an associate professor already? What is their profile? Where have they published? What's their publication? How much have they brought in? What are they doing externally? So match them across these matrices and then see, do you have that profile? Because we don't have a minimum. So maybe you have only three star, or three of them, but it means that you have like £1 million in research income, and that alone can kind of commensurate for the research. So you have to look across, make sure that you develop a profile that makes you very solid in the sense that if they don't give you, you go somewhere else because other people value you. Yeah. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually like your point about verbal written confirmation. I think Bolanle as a lawyer has also emphasized that, you know, you do go into jobs, and this is very important for early career researchers. You know, you start a new job and then somebody promises you, oh yes, don't worry, next academic year, you will get this, you know, lesser teaching load and you will get to work on your research. And you find that that person resigns or moves on to another job and you're screwed, you know. And I had to learn that the hard way, you know, and I had to even leave institutions because of that, you know. So fantastic. Sophia, how do you stay motivated? You know, I mean, you started your full-time lectureship at Glasgow from a PhD. How do you stay motivated now that you're on the job? What drives you? You know, maybe you can share that in a very succinctly with you know, some of the people doing a PhD at the moment.
Yeah, you know, when I saw the invite to come speak, I was actually in the middle of, oh my God, how am I going to progress? I was trying to figure things out. And that was why I jumped straight at that opportunity to come speak, because I feel like talking, reflecting is kind of like a way for me to also think of the way forward, you know. And in terms of staying motivated, I mean, right now, it feels tough. It feels like, you know, the road is getting much more difficult. But what's keeping me going is the fact that I'm good at my job. Every day, I kind of feel more confident. And I think that's coming from the fact that I'm supervising students. So I got a PhD student who started just a couple of weeks ago, which is very rare.
Fantastic.
I'm first leg and I'm her first supervisor. She came from Nigeria, and I got an ECR funding to bring in a PhD student, which was good. So the process of supervising, mentoring, talking, and just trying to help somebody else drive their research, the sort of ideas I'm giving them kind of gives me the confidence that I'm good at this, I'm coming up with all of these ideas, and thinking about application as well. So I see a paper, I see people working in engineering, I read their paper, and I can quickly relate the techniques they are using to things that I've worked on in computing science. These things are not cheap. When you are able to identify those unique traits in yourself, just bank on it. That's what I'm banking on right now. I'm not a professor. I'm just in the bare. I say I'm at the bottom of the food chain as a lecturer. And I have the promotion criteria of University of Glasgow. It's almost always open on my laptop and my tablet. I like to look at it just to see where I'm at, to proceed from the current grade to the next grade. I think it's about 4 papers. So there's a limit actually. It's 4 papers, and at least one of them must be 4-star. So the rest can be 3-star. And I'm like, okay, so if I can publish 4 papers in the next 2 or 3 years, I can apply for promotion. And I already have a PhD student, so I'm ticking off supervision. That's off. And impact, that's coming from my research in a way. Learning and teaching and practice, I'm good at my job. I love talking. I love teaching. My recent teaching evaluation, somebody says something about take note of all your teaching, the LSC's questionnaire and the things the students say. I almost took it for granted because I had 90% positive rates, from the student. And now I'm going back to store that somewhere on a folder, those are the things we need to keep. So I'm like, okay, I'm already ticking the box for applying for a promotion in 2 or 3 years. And I would say there's also something on the promotion criteria, esteem. And I looked at the esteem thing. It's all about reviewing papers, organizing conferences, speaking, being invited to speak at different, and I've had, several of that going on already, and I'm just putting them down. And something I would also say is when you be selfish and be selfless at the same time, when you see opportunities that can go into your promotion criteria, grab them. And when you see some things that are not a waste of time, but you're like, this is not going to count that much, say no. It's okay to say no. Be strategic with the things that you actually tap into. So again, know what the promotion criteria is. As Bolanle said, grade yourself, identify the things you need to do to move, and then identify people you need to tap into. And I would be happy and delighted to share the story on LinkedIn or whatever platforms out there, because I know I'm not where I want to be right now, but the confidence I have is what I'm banking on, that in 2-3 years time, I'm gonna be great, and I'm gonna be like PK Senyo and Bolanle, and
Yeah, don't worry, I'm Yinka as well.
Yeah, Yinka.
We will celebrate you when that time comes. We will definitely celebrate you. Thank you. Adeyo, I'll come to you now. I mean, as a young man, PhD at 23, I mean, that wows me. I don't know. In Nigeria, I would say that busts my brain,
Wow.
How do you, what's next? How do you stay motivated? What drives you now? Because like you said, you finished that PhD, you went through job rejections, and you felt like, oh, okay, what's next now for me? So how do you then continue to drive yourself to stay motivated, to stay relevant, to push on for you?
Oh yeah. First of all, I'm getting old now. I'm not as young. I finished my PhD years ago, so I'm getting there now. But no, I think first of all, the excitement to solve a research problem. So as an engineer, problem solving is fundamental, is key, and the desire to try and solve numerous problems and see the output. So currently, there was a project I did 2 years ago at Liverpool where I was actually a fundamental aspect of having an actual building being built in Liverpool where we developed this new technology, and it was actually demonstrated, and it's a building being used by people who live in there. So that's a big tip for me, which I'm happy about and as an engineer. So that motivates me and keeps me going. And recently, at the start of the year, I I reviewed my goals, and one of the things I wanted to achieve was to attain chartership. And there's often that, so becoming a chartered engineer, there's often that, would I say, um, what's the opposite of clarity? That confusion where being in academia, you can't become a chartered engineer. And so that was a challenge I had. And luckily, well, not lucky, putting my case forward and framing it as Adeyinka said, I was able to get through, and that happened. So things like that keep me going. And on the on a smaller scale, even speak or inspiring younger generation, speaking to people is key to me. So I go to schools sometimes, currently more online, but I go to schools to share my experience and try and inspire younger people to get into both STEM or engineering. So things like that keep me going, and that's something I am passionate about. But I should quickly say, sorry, that you know how we highlighted the importance of networking. So having been involved in like outreach and stuff, every now and then I get actual like professors reaching out to me to consider like telling me to apply for particular roles within the organization. But these are lecturing, full-time lecturing, which most times I've declined, but that's a personal preference. But the point I wanted to make there was sometimes once you pull your case out there, people know about you throughout this outreach, they will invite you for opportunities to take opportunities. So I just wanted to quickly highlight that.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much to all of you. Yinka, I'll call you now to give some concluding remarks, but man, it was a very insightful session. I think I also picked up a few points from all of you that, I could also use for myself as well, which is one of the, that's one of the aims of having these sessions. And I really, really, from the bottom of my heart, and I'm pretty sure if Professor Ken Amechi was here, he would also say the same. We really appreciate you guys sacrificing your Friday night after a very long week to come here and share some insights. Thank you so much to you, Dr. PK Senyo, to you, Dr. Sophia Olaoshebikon, Dr. Bolanle Adebola, and Dr. Adeayo Sotayo. And thank you as well to Dr. Adeyinka Adewale for agreeing to host this particular session. Yinka, I'll give it to you now to give some concluding remarks before we close.
You've said it. Thank you so much to our amazing speakers and to the audience who have, like you said, sacrificed the good part of Friday night to be with us. For us, this whole conversation is geared towards inspiring, sharing, and giving ourselves a platform and an opportunity to grow, because our joy and our absolute delight would be to hear of more stories of people making it through the ranks and going on to do really cool stuff in their respective corners. Thank you all for availing us the opportunity to share some of our insights with you tonight. And we hope that you will make use of them. And in terms of reaching out to people, more than happy to connect with you all on LinkedIn. I'm sure Bolanle, PK, Sophia, and Adeayo, and even yourself, Ade, will be more than happy to do that.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us uses pseudonyms on all those professional platforms. So just take our names and paste into LinkedIn. You will find us. And
in fact, I'll do that now. I'll put all of the speakers' profiles in the chat button now. Very quickly.
That'll be brilliant. Let's all connect. And let's keep the conversation going. In terms of the summary or wrap up of everything, I guess the message is very clear. There is room for you. Go for it. Thank you.
Yes, and our next event will be sometime next year in February. And that event, we will talk. I'm going to decide this with Professor Kenneth Amechi, but I think we will talk about probably the emotional aspect, dealing with rejections, dealing with some of the hard aspects of the job. How do we then bounce back? What are some of the things we need to learn? What are some of the things we need to do better? So we will definitely be tackling those types of issues in the next session, which will be sometime in February next year. And then we will have the major conference next year summer, probably in June, which will, if I'm not mistaken, be hosted by Professor Ken Kamuche at the University of Nottingham. So thank you, everybody. I've posted all the speakers there. Yinka, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just a quick one. The names that Ade is dropping randomly are really names of really powerful people in the UKHE sector that you should and you must be a part of. I remember I met Ken Kamoche in Ethiopia when we became friends. Oh yes. So that was going to a conference and meeting him. So some of these names and some of these guys are not even in my field. But again, going back to networking, you may not be able to go to an international conference, but I would like to put it out there. This kind of conference by SPA is an amazing platform to connect with these amazing professors and wonderful minds who you don't know exist, but actually are doing really powerful stuff in their respective spaces and you want to be friends with. So please make sure you bear in mind and pay attention to Ade's emails and nudges, and let's all be a part of it and grow our networks and be a part of one another's networks.
Yeah, definitely. And I would actually, for you, Dr. Bolanle, Adeyinka, and PK, I would be sharing your profiles and your promotion. I hope you guys don't mind, like I did for Professor Ogbonaya, who just became a professor at the University of Kent. So this is something as well we would like to do, to share, the success of our own people, how our people have achieved or accomplished something. So this would happen at some point. Now that you guys, got your associate professorships, fantastic. So we'll do that. So just in case you see a time.
My promotion is a bit stale. It's been a while.
So yeah, how many years ago?
I think it's 2 years now or something.
Don't worry, we'll still put it. We'll still put it. We'll just say something. We won't call it promotion. We'll just call it something. Just so that it also lets people know that, Dr. Bolanle Adebola is there at the University of Reading, etc. Definitely. Thank you very much, guys. It feels like we shouldn't finish, but, we gotta go, Thank you so much. And thank you for to the audience as well for coming. And Adeyinka, we did really well. We didn't go below 37 or 36 throughout the event, which was quite nice.
Yeah. And even though we're going to, our speakers will leave and everyone will leave, we'll get ourselves off the spotlight. We'll leave the platform open for another 5-10 minutes for meet and greet.
Okay.
Some people on this call might just want to have random chats. I know we can talk over each other and so on, but I'll just leave the platform open. I will be in the background and we'll probably end it in another 5 minutes or so. I'll make Ade the host.
I guess you could create breakout rooms as well.
Yes,
people...
I could. Yeah, I could do that. I could create breakout rooms. If you're happy to jump into breakout rooms, just jump into.
I'm happy to stay extra 20 minutes. I mean, what better way to spend my Friday night?
Okay. Yeah, Biden is in Glasgow at the moment, so who knows?
There are lots of fireworks going on. Biden and everyone is there, so there's nowhere to go. I'm stuck, so I live close to the COPE location.
Yeah.
I'll create 3 breakout rooms, which will mean about maybe about 10 persons in each group. And it to be, if you tell me that's too much, I can make it 5. Maybe make it 5 to make it a little smaller. So 6 participants in each room, and you can spend just 5 minutes to network with people you haven't met so far. It could be a great way to build your network and to get you access to what you need. So I'll do that and assign automatically. Please accept, and then let's carry the party on for Friday night.
Yeah.